That's always bad TV. You are live. We are live.
Right.
Oh, look at it. It even tells me right there I'm live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment. This is a very special edition because I am here live with Griffin Hammond, filmmaker extraordinaire and the creator of Hand Cut, an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous mini documentary.
Oh, thank you.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was a beautiful piece. Really well done. So we're going to talk today about that. We're going to talk a little bit about NAB since that's where we are.
Yeah.
And of course talk about the GH5, which we are both kind of small fans of, I think.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. But we're going to wait just a few minutes before we get into the meat of the conversation, make sure that people have a chance to join us live. Let's just see what's going on in the chat room this morning because we already got a few people chiming in here. So let's see, everybody's just saying good morning in Vegas. Oh, Martin Pitt, my friend. Martin's got a scratch on his new 12 to 60 Leica.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that was fast.
How do you do that? I've never scratched a Panasonic lens. I feel like I'm not like careful with it.
Right. Yeah, ooh, sorry, bud. I don't know what you did there, man, but that's brutal. That is brutal. Let's see, Sarah's just saying you discovered today the 6K photo video has no sound. That is correct, except there is one mode that does.
Which mode is that?
If you do it in the start-stop, so not the press and hold, and not the pre-roll, but if you do it like shooting video, push to start recording, push again to stop. It captures audio as well.
Wow.
So you can get 6K photo with audio. Lights changing all over the place.
Is that limited to like 30 seconds or how long can you shoot with that?
I don't think so, no, because you know, what's the guy that does the Christmas tree room vlog? He did a whole recording in that mode. Yeah. A whole broadcast.
Yeah.
So crazy, right?
Yeah.
But there you go. So that's what that is. Let's see what else is going on here. So guys, as usual, if you want to ask us a question, you know how to do it. Hit @PhotoJoseph. Or are you Griffin Hammond on? Oh, you know, I'm not going to see that. So @PhotoJoseph to me, because he's not watching the stream.
Yeah.
So if you have a question for either of us, just type in @PhotoJoseph. I'll see that red on my screen, and we'll come back to the questions. So we'll talk for a bit, and then we'll come back to the questions. Make sure we have a chance to get to everybody. All right. Well, I think that's pretty good. We're good.
Cool.
We've given people enough time to come in. Let's just get the actual show started.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna do another hot start here.
Sure.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment. I'm your host, PhotoJoseph, and I'm here with Griffin Hammond, who is a new friend. We hadn't met before.
No, yesterday was our first time.
Yesterday was our first time
seeing
meeting
each other in person. Yeah,
that's right. But Griffin is, of course, a filmmaker out of New York. You may have seen his short film called Hand Cut. It is a beautiful piece about the hand cut ice industry in New York. Shot on a GH5, but shot on a very early pre-production GH5.
Yeah, I think I was one of two filmmakers that had the camera first. It was me and Luke Newman.
Great.
And I guess he's more of a narrative guy. I'm the documentary guy, so I have the first documentary shot on the GH5.
Cool. That's great, and it's the piece is beautiful. So we're gonna talk about that piece and the production of it, behind the scenes of it, and of course talk about the camera, the GH5 itself as well. So this is being broadcast live. If you're not watching it live, sorry about that, but you got to tune in every weekday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific to get the live show. But we will be chatting and taking some questions from the audience as well. So we'll be uploading an edited version of this later too. So we're actually coming to you live today from a fabulous little hotel that I just found in Las Vegas. You know, everybody stays in these big casinos, which are, that's great, you know, if that's your thing, right? But they're a bit of a handful. So I found this little place called the Thunderbird Hotel. It's somewhere between what's the shopping district called? The downtown, official downtown, and the Strip.
Downtown,
Yeah, somewhere between there. It's a great little place. You can see a great environment here. We're in the lounge. So next time you come to Vegas, be sure to check this place out.
Well, and when I walked in, I saw they had the chapel.
They had a full wedding chapel
with a tree
here.
inside.
So they told me, the owner was telling me yesterday, the manager was telling me yesterday that the tree was there and they built the chapel around the tree. That's just so cool. It's a great place. So come here, have a drink, stay overnight, get married, you know, as you do in Las Vegas. So let's talk about the film. So you first started this thing. How long before the camera was released did you get your hands on it?
December. It was maybe the second week of December. They gave me the pre-production model, and I had to turn around a product pretty quick.
Yeah, so that's not much time.
It was like, here's the camera, and a week from now we need a finished video. So I spent pretty much 80 hours straight just shooting and editing this 5-minute film.
Wow. Now, how did they select you to do this? I know you'd worked with Panasonic before and had a lot of feedback on the GH4 and probably previous GH cameras.
Well, I actually hadn't really officially worked with Panasonic until this camera release, but they had noticed that I've been using this line of cameras since the first one, the GH1. I got that in 2010. And then I made a how to set up your GH4 video that became very popular amongst GH4 owners.
Okay.
And I think that's what signaled to Panasonic that they needed to have a relationship with me.
Nice. Okay.
I was always hoping that would happen, and then they just called me one day.
Well, that's a nice way for that to work.
Yeah.
So they called you up. They said, "We've got this camera that you might be interested in. Would you go make a short doc for us?"
Yeah, and I also loved that they were, even before I shot the film, early in the process, they were taking my feedback on, like, there was a couple things I didn't like about the GH4, and they fixed those things. One of them was the screen elements used to turn off after a minute.
Okay.
And you'd have to like push record. If you pushed record, it would just kind of wake it up without actually recording, and you push it again to record.
Okay.
And that just bugged me because I would miss shots.
Yeah.
So little things like that. I said, you know, this bothers me, and they fixed it. And so I love having that pipeline to get help.
That is a great thing. Yeah. And to actually see your features introduced, implemented, that your request implemented, that's really cool. Okay, so you decided, they come to you asking for this doc. They didn't come to you with a topic, did they? Right.
They said, shoot whatever you want.
Shoot whatever you want, but here's the camera. It's got a few specific features.
Yeah.
And I know from watching one of your other behind the scenes, you wanted to integrate some of those features into it. So what were the highlights of the new things on the GH5 that you wanted to be able to integrate?
Well, the big one is 4K 60p. And I thought it'd be really fun to shoot in 4K 60p and deliver it in 4K 60p.
Sure.
I mean, I could have slowed it down to 24 and had beautiful slow motion. But I just thought it'd be interesting to try out. I'd never shot anything and presented it in 60. Right. And some people at Panasonic, like Sean Robinson, who works in marketing over there, I think he said to me, like, are you sure you want to do this? Because not everyone loves 60, the look of it.
Right.
But I kind of thought, I want to try this out, and if I shoot it the same way I would shoot normally, and if I integrate some cinematic elements like jib shots, and if I just care for it the same way I would if I was shooting something in 24, hopefully people won't mind the frame rate. Maybe they'll like it.
Right.
And I've been really happy with the response. I mean, it looks kind of hyper real in 60. And the topic, it turned out, I didn't really pick the topic because of 60p, but it turned out that doing a film about ice, and there's chipping ice and chainsawing ice, and there's spray everywhere, catching double the visual information by having twice as many frames per second really captures that detail. And the shutter speed's shorter, so the detail is even sharper.
Right, you get that crisper little flying pieces of ice. Were there any limitations you ran into because you were shooting in 60p? You said, well, if I was shooting in 30 or 24, I'd be able to do this, but now I can't because of 60. So we hear a lot of great hype about what 60 can deliver.
Right.
And it's all these great advantages, but of course, with every give, there's a take. So was there anything you ran into that you couldn't do because you're shooting 60?
Really just exposure. I mean, my exposure's half as much because my shutter speed is now 1/120th of a second. And so everything was twice as dark as what it normally be. And I'm shooting in bars, so I'm not getting a lot of light, but I was mostly shooting with, like, I shot a lot on the 12 millimeter prime f1.4, and I was shooting with the 42.5 millimeter f1.2. So
the Nocticron,
I was doing pretty well in low light, and I had a light called an ice light.
Oh yeah.
I was using for some of the interviews.
Okay. Yeah, so how high ISO did you have to get into when you were shooting this?
The highest ISO I shot in that piece was 1600.
Okay.
I think I was usually around 800 or less.
And how did you feel shooting at 1600? Because low light is always one of the big questions. What's low light performance really like in the real world? And you felt it was great.
I mean, I thought it was fine, and I didn't notice any significant noise at that. I mean, some of the darker shots that weren't lit definitely were noisier, but I was very happy with how it turned out.
Now, in the final production, was there a heavy color grading pass that went into it, or what are we seeing when we watch the film?
Not heavy color grading, but I think I did grade every shot a little bit. I like to shoot in the natural color profile on these cameras. I mean, a lot of people will shoot in like Vlog completely flat, and then give it to a colorist, and I've just decided I'm not good enough of a colorist, or I don't have enough experience there to know what I'm doing. But I like natural because it's close enough, it's almost good enough to be done. Like, you can throw that on TV and it's fine. But it's a little bit flatter than standard, so it does give me some latitude to color grade. So I'll usually push the exposure a little bit. If I need to correct the color temperature a little bit, I can. A lot of times I'll pop up the color saturation a little bit. But just little things like that.
Okay, cool. So that's good to know, because I think, you know, we hear these things of how it's shot, oh, they're shot at this ISO and so on, but then no one ever talks about, well, what else happened? You know, did it go to Resolve to have some major noise reduction pass done to it? Oh, fine, it looks good because it went through some really big expensive system. But if it's basically straight out of camera with a little bit of color boosting, then that's pretty good. That's awesome to hear. So anybody who's watching this who's wondering about the high ISO performance, that's a pretty good indicator right there. You can watch the film and see that, especially looking at the darker scenes in the bars and so on.
And I think people are always surprised, people really like Vlog. They like Cine-like D and Cine-like V. But I've just always been shooting with natural, like ever since like the GH3.
Sure.
And I just like that look.
Yeah.
So it works for me.
Fair enough. So anyway, I really enjoy, although you're not going to grade it afterwards, the Vivid one. It's really poppy.
Yeah.
When I was down in Mexico earlier this year doing a workshop, and I shot a ton of behind the scenes footage of the workshop attendees and just the things we're looking at. And I had all the camera, I had a few cameras with me that are all set to Vivid. I didn't do any color grading.
Yeah.
It's just so, but of course it lends itself to that because it's Mexico, really bright saturated colors. What you were doing here is a bit more subdued, and so I think that natural tone just fits right into it.
Yeah.
Really cool. So the camera, 4K 60 was one of them, and then the camera is freeze proof. You shot ice. There was any correlation there?
Again, it's funny. I didn't pick the topic to like show off the features. I really was just in a bar with my wife and saw this giant block of ice, and just got very curious about that. And I thought I should follow my curiosity and make a film about that. But as I made the film, it was like, man, all these things are fitting so well with this camera. Like, yeah, it's freeze proof. It's also, I mean, I think the last one was splash proof as well.
Yeah.
And I'm getting shots with like ice just spraying on the lens, and I felt fine about
at
that.
all. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these cameras, it's always been one of their claims to fame is their ability to operate without shutting down in extreme hot and cold environments. And I've talked to several people who shoot in deserts, people who shot in places like Dubai, and they're out in this incredible 100, 110 degree heat, operating with their camera, shooting 4K all day long, and no problems at all.
Yeah. I've never had a problem with it overheating.
Great. Yeah, it's a remarkable piece. So I'm going to take a quick look through the comments here, see if there's anything coming up. Martin's saying he's getting a little overwhelmed by the features in the GH5. Are there any good starting points or tips an expert like Griffin could offer? That's a good question. So someone who's brand new to the GH5, maybe they're not familiar with really advanced cameras. Maybe this is their most advanced camera yet. How do you even start? Because there's a lot of capabilities in there.
Well, and I even counted the number of menu items because in the GH4 there were 120 menu items, and that was 139.
Wow.
So it is more daunting of a camera. It has a lot of features. But like one simple thing you can do in the camera, if you push the display button while you're on a menu or a menu item, it'll tell you what that thing is.
Yeah.
So that can help a little bit. But I know, I mean, you and I use different features in the camera. I focus very much on the filmmaking video features. So I've actually made a video. It's how to set up your GH5 for filmmaking.
You've already done one. Great.
And I just focus on the ones that are important to me. So you don't need to know everything in the camera. You just need to kind of figure out what's important to you.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. So we'll make sure that we link to that video up here so you can grab that. And also already in the links up here, you'll see a shortcut to hand cut. But yeah, we'll definitely link to that to make sure that you can see that GH5 setup video. One of the requests that I've been getting a lot is to share my settings file because the GH5 now allows us to do that.
I did that,
right? Did you share that in that
video? Yeah.
Perfect. Because I do both filmmaking and still photography, and I'm trying to come up with a feature set, a preset, get all the function buttons and everything that really appeals to both and does what I need for both. And I'm really close, and people keep asking me to share it, and I will. But I'm still tweaking it. Every once in a while I go, "Ooh, this would be better if this button did that." So it's a process for sure. But that is one of the really cool things. We can now save that function, save those commands to a little file, which you can then post on the internet as you've done. Which is great. Let's see, Sharbax is asking, Griffin, are you going to try out some anamorphic lenses and shoot 6K 30 with audio? Well, and you just learned about the ability to shoot 6K 30. Now, just to clarify that, it's not 6K video, and it's an important differentiation. 6K photo mode is not 6K video in the traditional sense. It's not 6K wide. It's 6K total pixels, but if you do...
Because it's not a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's a full sensor, 4:3 aspect ratio.
Right, but if you add an anamorphic lens, de-squeeze it, I don't know what the numbers are going to add up to, but it might get close to that. It's kind of ridiculous.
And my understanding is sometime this summer they're releasing a firmware update that will make it even, I think there will be even more pixels captured in that anamorphic lens.
Right, using the full frame and not scaling down to 4K, I think that's the intention.
I am excited to try out some anamorphic lenses, and I'm kind of waiting until they release that just so that I'm sure it would still be great quality now, but I figure I might as well really try it out when it's even better.
Have you ever shot with anamorphic?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either, and it's not easy. It's not like a regular lens you just focus and go. They are a bit different. I know there's anamorphic adapters you can add to lenses, and then you have to focus twice, and that's this is not run and gun, but I'm excited to try it myself.
And they're much more expensive, these lenses,
but I think manufacturers are coming out with more and more. That's One of the things I wanted to look for here at the show floor, but I'm running out of time, probably not going to get to. But
yeah.
it is exciting to see that part of the market expanding, and it's a great look. That anamorphic look, you get the lens flares. That's all fun and cool.
And I suppose even if you don't go anamorphic, there's still something to be said for shooting in high resolution 4:3 aspect ratio. I mean, there's still You could deliver things that way if you wanted.
Well, you can absolutely, and then the Cinema 4K mode. So you've got 4K, this UHD, and then C4K, Cinema 4K. So you get that broader frame, and that allows you to do the pan and scan inside of the shot, open gate it's called, to be able to slide the shot around, which is really, I
mean, that's already what I do with time lapses, shooting full frame images.
Okay, well, now when you shoot time lapse, do you shoot full resolution or do you scale it down in camera, say shoot a JPEG that's that's the medium size or something?
No, I do the full resolution. That way, when I'm doing my editing and have a 4K project file, I can punch in, I can do a Ken Burns effect or something, and know that I'm not losing fidelity,
resolution. Yeah, for sure. Very cool. All right, other questions coming in here. Ben5 Shuttle is asking, do either you or Griffin use a lens protector / filter normally on your lenses? Reference Griffin's mentioning about the ice on his camera lens.
I suppose he's talking about like a UV filter.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I have never done that. And actually, I have a podcast. We were recently answering a question about that.
Yeah.
And me and my co-host Nick agreed that neither of us have ever used UV filters.
Right.
He seems to think that if you dropped it, it would break the UV filter. I seem to think if the UV filter breaks, wouldn't you also like scratch the lens or break the lens? I don't know.
No, the conventional wisdom is that if laws of physics should say that the first piece of glass breaks first.
Yeah.
And that as the shockwave goes through. Yeah. That's always been my understanding.
Yeah. And I guess it's not touching the other lens.
Right.
There's a little gap.
Right. No, there's a gap. Absolutely. Yeah. And I used to use UV filters all the time when I was younger, and every lens was this precious thing that you saved a year to get or 2 years to get. You tend to be a little bit more protective. Now I'm a little bit more cavalier about it. Now I've got insurance. I figure if the gear dies, that's what it's for.
Right.
I don't want to put anything else. I don't want to put anything else between my glass and what I'm shooting.
That's how I feel.
But it certainly can be protective. And I think to answer Ben5 Shuttle's question, if you're in an environment where you know that you're going to have a lot of nasty crap flying around, maybe shooting in the desert, you got a lot of sand, that sort of thing, I think that's probably wise to put that on. Yeah. But you have to spend the money to buy a good one, because you can buy a cheap UV filter. Oh, look, it's $20, but it's going to do horrible things to the color. Mm-hmm. There's reflections. You can get a reflective echo, and I did a test on this years and years ago, showing off a cheap UV filter, pointing the camera at a point of light, like the light up here, and you get a little lens flare, and that's normal, right? But you'll get an echo of it because the beam of light comes through the filter, through the lens, hits the sensor, goes forward, and if it's not coated properly, it'll hit that filter and bounce back to the sensor again, and then you get this light echo. And that's terrible. Yeah. So cheap filters, no good. But to answer the question, no, it sounds like neither of us really do use them. So you mentioned the podcast. Talk about that for a moment. I've been watching it, listening to it. I love it. It's great. So go ahead and promote that. Tell people what it's all about.
Well, we just released our 16th episode today, this morning. It's called Hey Indie Filmmakers. It's a podcast directed towards indie filmmakers, low budget filmmaking, and we answer questions from the audience.
That's great. That's great. Well, it's on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah, it's a video podcast and an audio podcast.
Right, yeah, I subscribe in iTunes, but it's on YouTube, so we will link to that up here as well. Make sure you check out his podcast. It's a great show. I really enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've definitely learned a few things listening to it. So
it's been fun to do.
It is. Podcasts are fun.
Yeah, I like the format. That's why I knew I had to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys record in two different locations.
Yeah.
You're videoing each other, and then you're sending the files.
Right. Yeah. Although my co-host he lives in Las Vegas, so this episode we recorded together.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
We should have had him come in today, too. All right, let's see here. Next up, Sheila House is asking, Griffin, what type of file management system do you use? Year, month, day. I think about naming the files. She's asking, any other important workflow info to share with us today? File management with video is a pain in the butt.
So like for a project like Hand Cut, where there's a lot of elements in this 5-minute film, I will do a little bit more organization than usual. So I'm copying all my files off the SD card onto the hard drive, and then I'll organize it by interviews, which I often call SOTs. That's what like news people call it, sound on tape.
Okay.
And so I'll make like a SOT folder, and I'll put all my audio files for the interviews, all my video files for the interviews in that. I'll put my B-roll in its own folder, just the shots of ice and stuff. I'm also shooting time lapses, so I'll take all those photos and put them in their own folders. I'm even using the allocation SD card setting on the GH5. There's dual SD card slots on this camera, so I can tell it I want to put all the video on card 1 and all the photos on card 2.
I love that feature.
That helps me just keeping them separate from the beginning. Yeah,
it's so great.
And then when I import them into Final Cut, it just honors those folders, and I can just kind of keep my mind.
Do you do any
clear.
file renaming in the Finder?
No, I leave them the way they are. Yeah. And then in Final Cut, you can see them pretty well. So I guess sometimes I rename them by like the person in the interview. Like, this is Bob, but not P150.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that's cool about Final Cut, when you import, you can have it create tags, keywords, essentially, from the folder name of the folder that the files are in.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got your SOT, then that shows up in there. Yeah. That's definitely handy.
So yeah, I'll do a combination of leave them in their folders kind of category, but then I'll do even more keywording, like, oh, here's a shot of a dog. Command K dog, and I'll do that for all the dog shots. And then later, if I am doing, I need more shots of that dog, I can find it.
It's handy to have, yeah. So you cut in Final Cut, obviously. Are you doing all your own editing, or do you have an editor you work with as well?
Yeah, I do my own editing.
Okay. Yeah, everything. Do you do your own audio mixing? Do you do coloring? You still all one man band?
Yeah, I'm a one-man band.
Cool.
For this piece, I used a lot of audio. I was recording with like an NTG3 microphone. Getting a lot of nat sound, trying to get it really close. Like sometimes I would put the microphone like really close to the guy chipping away and try to get good audio. But sometimes we were in places with loud refrigerator noise in bars, or there was a lot of that kind of refrigeration noise in the ice
like
facility.
We're getting here,
yeah. So I couldn't always use my nat sound, so I did also use some like Foley kind of stuff. I was using sound effects. Sometimes I would take like the sound of an ice skate, and I might mix it with the sound of a pick and put those together, and I'd get kind of the sound of like scraping ice around. And
that's great.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Okay, so when you were doing the audio for this film, did you have the XLR1?
I didn't yet.
Okay, yeah.
So actually I have it now, the little XLR box that you can put on the GH5.
That's wonderful.
So I could do interviews, and I am doing interviews with this now, right into the camera. But at the time, I didn't have it yet, so I was just going into my H5 audio recorder.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right, let's see, what else is on here? Serge is asking, how does Griffin focus when shooting? Are you using autofocus and manual, or all manual focus?
I feel like this is always a funny question to answer, because video people are always like, don't ever use autofocus. But there's more nuance than that. I do use autofocus, but what I do is I turn off continuous AF in the camera, because I don't ever want the camera to change focus without my input. I would like to control everything. I have everything in manual, manual exposure and white balance and ISO and all that. So with focus, I leave it on, I turn off continuous AF, but I leave the AFS switch on.
Okay.
And I have it set to push to focus, like the single area.
The back button focus?
Actually, I'm just using like the shutter.
Okay.
So I have single area focus, just a little square.
Right.
And I can put that on my subject. I just push the shutter halfway down, focus, I start my shot, and then it's not going to change during the shot.
Right.
So I don't ever use like the facial tracking. Those are all cool features, but they're just not my shooting style.
Right. Yeah, I think that's been it's been a big point of discussion, obviously, around the GH5 and what the best way is to focus. Because it's interesting, a lot. We were just saying, for you don't want the camera to focus without you, without your input.
I want to know that I'm controlling everything.
Right, absolutely.
I'm initiating the changes.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been doing with the one area is you touch the screen to make it focus there, right?
Yeah.
And so yesterday, for example, we did a live broadcast from here with a bunch of people who watched the show, all came together. It was really fun, little kind of a dozen people chit-chatting. And as people were walking up and back from the camera, I just would touch the screen and touch the face and make sure that it locked onto their face. Yeah. And then they go away and I go back to the background. And really easy to do. It just takes a quick little tap and off you go.
What do you do right now in this shot?
Well, this is manual focus because we're not moving around. There's no point. Last thing I would want is it to suddenly go, oh look, there's a background. Right? Yeah. So it's just manual and locked in, and hopefully it's focused right.
Yeah. Well, and even if like the facial tracking works really well for something like this, I could just never trust that the camera. If we shoot for half an hour, there's a lot of opportunities for the camera to decide, hey, that thing looks like a face back there.
Right.
Someone could walk by back there.
Right, that too. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's all manual here. And of course, there's no one monitoring it. There's no one standing behind the camera checking. If there were, it might be a little bit different, but it's just us here, so it's the way it is. All right, let's see if there's any other questions. No other questions come up here. So anybody else who's got a question to throw in there, please do take this opportunity to ask Griffin, because once the show is over live, there's no more live questions.
You'll never see me again.
Never see me. So speaking of never seeing you again, what is next? When are we going to see you again? What are you working on?
Well, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of stuff for Panasonic. I'm doing, like at NAB today, I'm doing another speech at 2:30, like on their stage. I'm doing a little bit of traveling for Panasonic. I'm actually going to Asia to do some GH5 stuff.
Oh, awesome.
I'm actually doing some travel for the State Department. Like I'm going to Kazakhstan.
No kidding. Wow.
To talk about filmmaking, yeah.
Talk about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about that. What is that for?
So I'm part of this thing called the American Film Showcase. I was selected as one of 40 filmmakers that gets to travel around the world.
Wow.
These 40 filmmakers go to 40 countries. Each one goes to a country. But what's interesting is that once I got in the system, like I went to the Kingdom of Bahrain for the State Department and did a bunch of workshops. But then other embassies, U.S. embassies around the world heard about me and said, hey, why don't you come to Israel and why don't you come to Kazakhstan? So I'm actually going to go be part of this event called the Go Viral Festival in Kazakhstan, in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Wow.
From June 16th to 18th.
And who's the audience for this?
It'll be like video creators, people who are, want to know more about creating video, about reaching audiences.
Is it open to the public, or is this for?
Yeah, I think
government?
it's open to the public. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The idea is that it's an event that the U.S. consulate is putting on for people.
I had no idea that the U.S. consulate, that the government would get involved in making video-based trade shows, conferences, stuff like that. That's
well, I mean,
interesting.
You figure the State Department's goal is to help people around the world understand Americans and have a better relationship with Americans. And I think they've found that film is a great way to share culture. I mean, film is very accessible. It's easy to show someone something short, and you get a lot of information, and you understand another culture very well.
Sure.
And I learn a lot by going to these other cultures and talking with people about the kinds of videos they're making.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, I never heard of such a thing. That is really, really great. So, Brian, a couple last questions coming in here, and then we're going to wrap this up. Sharbax is asking, how good is that new Panasonic VariCam light? I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm not a VariCam user, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're GH users. I have no idea. Sorry, Sharbax, we'll have to skip that one. Let's see here. Vincent's asking, have you ever tried any of the motorized zoom lenses?
I haven't. And actually, someone was asking me about this, if they should get a power zoom.
Yeah.
And back in my video camera days, traditional video camera, I guess I was used to a servo zoom. But I don't think I need it anymore, because I can't imagine, I've gotten used to this, and I don't think I'm going to compose a shot that needs a slow zoom or something.
Right. Yeah, agreed. One of the advantages of the slow zoom, of course, is that you can get it consistent, but you can do that by hand as well. Once you really get good at that lens, you get to understand it. If you're doing live broadcasting, I can understand having more of a need for it, and then something like integrating it with a Blackmagic Cine camera, you can actually control the zoom from a console. So that's one place where the powered zoom could come in quite handy. So then you can be at a remote, at a console, saying zoom in, zoom out, and doing that all from here. But yeah, for normal use, I don't really see much.
Yeah, and in cinema, there aren't a lot of examples of zooming. It just
exactly.
It's usually kind of usually when you do it in film, you're trying to call attention to it because it's a weird effect.
It is, yeah. Yeah, usually you're locked. Camera might move, but yeah, the lens doesn't usually zoom. Yeah, and also those powered zoom lenses aren't the highest quality glass. They're not the fastest ones. They're really made more for that broadcast side of things. They're not made for really high-end filmmaking.
Yeah.
So
and I assume just to get that feature, you're adding to the price tag a significant amount.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, Sharbex is clarifying the secret new Panasonic camera at NAB.
They have one under a cloth.
Oh, I've heard about this. Okay, that's what he's talking about. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Fused DZN is saying, do you have a favorite GH5 cage that you've seen so far at NAB that doesn't take up or block the hot shoe mount? Have you walked around a little bit and looked at these?
I haven't seen any cages. I guess I haven't been specifically looking for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a cage user. I used to use a lot of shoulder rigs, and I think my first GH1, I tried to build it up and mount the audio recorder on it. And then I started to realize the benefit of this camera is that it's so lightweight.
Right.
And you can take your audio recorder and put it somewhere else, mount it on your waist or something. I started putting things in a shoulder bag next to me, and you can drop off the bag and run around real light. So I just preferred to not put stuff on it.
Sure. There are a couple of cages. I know I've seen a couple, and I did shoot a little bit of video on one of them that when I do an NAB roundup, it'll show up in there. I honestly remember the manufacturer though right now. But there's a couple out there, and yeah, they're very aware that the handle can't be on the top. The one that I saw, the handle is just removable, and so allowing you to put the XLR one on top of it, because of course that goes right where the handle usually is. Right. But then this particular model had side handles to compensate for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and someone at Panasonic told me that if you have the XLR adapter on top, there's also, I think that Canon makes a little like flash like a cable.
Right, a TTL extension cable.
And I was told it's compatible. So if you wanted to mount your XLR adapter on a cage elsewhere, you might be able to use a cable like that.
Yeah, that's come up, and I actually have a show that I don't have a show on it yet. I have a reminder to myself to make sure that it works, because I do have an old Canon TTL cable.
Yeah.
And it's the same pin configuration. There's nothing special about the XLR1's pin configuration.
Right.
So if the pins match, you should be able to extend it.
Yeah.
Which could absolutely help with that sort of situation. You could even stick it in your bag. It doesn't have to be mounted on the cage.
Right, yeah.
You can put it somewhere else if you wanted to. Absolutely. All right, that is about, we got one more in here. I'm not quite sure what the question means. Ken Holm is saying, Griffin, is there a favorite app you like using with the GH5 or perhaps the GH4? Clarify what you mean by that. If you're talking about just a photo editing or video editing app, if that's what you mean, because as far as controlling the camera, there is the Panasonic app.
The LUMIX app,
right?
Yeah. Sometimes I use that to like focus on myself remotely in a situation like this.
Right. And I probably actually should have set it up for this, but I didn't bother. Once we set
I also use it a lot to just like take a photo, connect to my phone, and transfer the photo so I can post it on Instagram real quick.
Yeah, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So you get that really high quality image in there to be able to do that. Okay. Bernstech is asking, which mic are you using? Right now, we've got a couple of RØDE lavs that are wired. These are the ones that are designed for your iPhone, and then they're just running an extension cable over to the camera, and then converted from the TRRS to the TRS. That's the SC3 adapter or something like that. But it's all a RØDE configuration. This is my little travel interview kit, and it's very small. It all bundles up about this big. But we are wired right now. Wireless is obviously handy, but we're not wireless. And I actually asked you if you had a wireless lav with you, because I have one, but not two. And if we had both of them, then we could have used the XLR1 to do this interview, and that would have actually put us both on separate channels, which would have been kind of cool. A little left and right side panning on there, but no, today we're just wired straight in.
For some reason, I never trust wireless lavs. I guess I've gone to too many. I go to big events like, I was covering the presidential election, and I go to debates and stuff. It just seemed like there's so much interference in places like that. Everyone has cell phones, and I just, I always would get interference here or there.
Wow, I've never run into interference, but I'm also usually not working in those type of environments. And I know that a lot of these higher end recorders, frequency hopping, they can jump to different bands. There's a lot of really good high tech stuff out there for dealing with that, but it's not something I've had to run into. All right, there's one more question here that we're gonna wrap this thing up. This is a great question. Ben 5 Shuttle is asking again, if you both like the XLR1, when would you consider using an external recorder? Well, so I like the XLR1, but I've gotten really used to having an audio recorder, and there's benefits to it, like, if I'm covering a political event, I can plug in my audio recorder to the Molt box, the thing that they make available to the reporters. Okay. So you're getting the feed from the lectern where Bernie Sanders is speaking or whatever. I can plug that in over there, and I can run around the event, and I'm not tethered to my audio. Okay. So that's one reason I like it. But also, I like having redundant audio. Maybe I have a problem where I do an interview and someone peaks or something. I always have the on-camera audio, and it doesn't sound nearly as good, but maybe I can just pull like a split second of it and kind of patch it over. So I like having multiple recordings. And when you go in XLR1 adapter on the GH5, you're just getting that. You don't have another piece of audio. Second. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there are recorders that will record dual tracks, even one at a lower dB. So you can say record it, whatever setting, and then give me a backup at -6 or -12 dB for that exact reason for the peaking. Yes, there's still lots of advantages to shooting with an external recorder, but the fact that we no longer have to. Yeah. I think that's the huge thing on the XLR1. Well, and the big thing is you could put your microphone into the XLR1, turn on there's a setting where you can send it one input to both channels instead of having like one on the left channel, one on the right channel. Send it to both, and now you don't have to do any syncing in post, and it's already on both channels. It's like done. Right. I mean, you could even take the file right out of the camera and upload it to YouTube. Yeah, absolutely. So and if you are doing dual, like if this was on a wireless setup and we were doing recording each one of our lavs into a different channel, then we'd have that on two separate channels to mix. We'd have to mono mix them eventually. Right, yeah. But if you were talking louder than me or vice versa, then we could easily compensate for that. Or if I suddenly cough, then I could, while you're in the middle of talking, we could remove that from my channel and it would just barely show up on yours. So a lot of advantages. So there's advantages to both sides of it. I think the convenience clearly of the XLR1 is a really big advantage, but it's not always the best situation. So it's more options. Yeah, and it's a little bit more expensive than an audio recorder, but you're getting a lot of convenience out of it. You are absolutely. Very good. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really fun. We've talked quite a bit about the film and a bit about the camera itself. Learned a few things here. Got some good questions answered. So here at NAB, for anybody who's watching who is in Las Vegas, what time are you presenting on the Panasonic stage?
2:30 today, Pacific time, and I think it'll be on Facebook Live on the Panasonic Facebook page. It's like the Panasonic Pro Video USA page, I think.
Oh goodness. Can't send you the link to that one, but Google it, and hopefully you'll find that before 2:30. You got until 2:30 to find that. Yeah. So that's great. And you're going to be talking about hand cut, right?
Yeah, I'll be going more in depth on the lenses I used and what equipment I use.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. Yeah. Don't forget, follow you on, well, everywhere it's Griffin Hammond, right? So your Instagram.
If you just Google Griffin Hammond, you'll find my YouTube channel where I do tutorials. You'll find Twitter and all that.
Yeah, what kind of things do you do on YouTube? Is it primarily tutorials? Is that your...
Yeah, it's tutorial videos. It's the podcast every week. That's mostly what I'm doing,
That's great. A lot of tutorials around the camera or more filmmaking? Is just across the board?
Yeah, I think the last 2 videos I have are the how to set up your GH5 video. It's a 20-minute video that walks you through a lot of the features on the camera. And then I just made a short video about the XLR1 adapter.
Oh, great. Very good. Yeah. So then follow you on Instagram, Griffin Hammond, Twitter, Facebook. Where do you post a lot to Instagram? Is that a...
Yeah, I post maybe once a week or something. Okay. I answer a lot of questions on Twitter. I mean, if you have questions, send them to me. I'm happy to take them.
Very good. Well, thanks again for coming in. Thanks you all for watching live, and we will see you again tomorrow for tomorrow's PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment. Thanks. Well, thank you.
Thank you. This is a great way to start the day.
Yeah, all right. All right, now it's time to go off to the show. See what's going on there. Some good feedback from Marvin saying, thanks for a great interview. Thank him for his setup. Oh, says thank you for his setup. It's helped him a lot.
Oh, wonderful.
Setup video. That's great. That's great. All righty. Oh, there's some questions that we'll have to another time.